Welcome to this explainer. So, imagine trying to police a nation made up entirely of dispersed islands, deeply interconnected families, and a shared culture. Standard law enforcement playbooks? Yeah, they simply fall short here. You literally can't just copy and paste a big city policing model onto a remote atoll where everyone knows your grandmother. It just doesn't work. Today, we're exploring a fascinating blueprint for law enforcement specifically designed for a unified island nation, much like the Maldives. We're going to look at a tailored strategic vision that completely redefines how police operate in these unique, close-knit environments. There is a core philosophy driving this entire blueprint, and it's summed up perfectly in this quote. The best policing strategy is to protect that cohesion, not damage it. You see, in a small nation where people share one faith, one language, and incredibly tight family bonds, social cohesion isn't just some nice-to-have cultural trait. It is the absolute ultimate strategic advantage for public safety. The primary goal of policing here isn't just catching criminals, it's actively protecting the social fabric itself, all while firmly upholding the rule of law. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll be breaking down the 6 foundational pillars of this model, starting with a citizen-mandated philosophy, building professional police education, policing a close-knit society, ensuring integrity, ethics, and accountability, focusing on communication and public safety, and finally, tailoring everything for island nations. All right, let's dive into Section 1, a citizen-mandated philosophy. Think about the traditional mindset of authority for a second. Often people kind of view the police as the rulers of the street. But in this model, officers are explicitly trained to completely reject that police as rulers mentality. They aren't there to enforce personal opinions or political preferences. No way. Instead, they must view themselves entirely as implementers. They are the guardians of decisions and laws that have been enacted by the people themselves through their representatives. It flips the traditional power dynamic right on its head. You aren't being policed by an occupying force, you're being served by an agency implementing your own community's rules. And this philosophy translates into everyday action through something called rule-bound authority. Basically, this means all police powers are strictly limited by written laws and standard operating procedures. Step outside those boundaries, that is automatically considered misconduct, no matter what your intentions were. The ends absolutely do not justify the means here. And here's the key takeaway. Treating every single suspect, victim, or witness with dignity and courtesy isn't just about being polite. Respectful enforcement is a highly intentional, strategic standard. When citizens feel respected, long-term stability goes up, trust goes up, and overall compliance is significantly higher. Moving right along to Section 2, building professional police education. So, what exactly goes into a national policing academy under this blueprint? Well, of course, officers learn standard tactics and physical fitness, but the core focus is entirely different. The structured education ensures every single recruit masters the Constitution, citizens' rights, and strict ethics. They are rigorously trained in human rights and use of force principles, as well as how to handle incredibly sensitive community issues, like domestic violence and the protection of vulnerable groups. And this education doesn't just stop after graduation, it is a mandatory, continuous culture. Officers are required to take annual refreshers on law changes and ethical standards. But here is the real kicker, and I love this. An officer's career advancement and promotions are tied directly to their demonstrated ethical performance and competence. You absolutely cannot simply rely on your years of service to move up the ranks if your ethics aren't spotless. The system actively filters for integrity, not just longevity. Okay, on to Section 3, policing a close-knit society. In an island population, you're operating in an everyone knows everyone kind of environment. Think about it. Your neighbor might literally be the person you're pulling over for a traffic violation, or the local shop owner might be a relative. Now, rather than seeing this as a hurdle or a conflict of interest, police are taught to use this local familiarity as a massive asset. They leverage these existing relationships to prevent crime early. Officers host regular island-level forums, openly communicating their duties with local councils, women's groups, youth, and religious leaders. And to prevent this closeness from turning into bias, officers are posted long enough to deeply understand the local dynamics, but they're rotated periodically to maintain those crucial professional boundaries. So for minor and first-time offenses, especially when it comes to youth, this approach completely prioritizes guiding over punishing. It relies on a clear, escalating response. Step 1, warnings and mediation. Just sitting down and talking it out. Step 2 brings in referrals to social services to really get at the root cause of the behavior. And Step 3 is education on consequences, rather than just jumping straight to immediate harsh punishment. The ultimate goal here is brilliant. minimize the number of broken laws in the community, not just maximize the number of arrests. That brings us to Section 4, Integrity, Ethics, and Accountability. This blueprint demands an absolute zero-tolerance policy for any abuse of authority. There are clear, unbreakable rules: no bribery, no favoritism, no political interference, and absolutely no personal vendettas, period. But, as we all know, a rule is really only as good as its enforcement, right? That is exactly why this model mandates heavily resourced internal affairs units working directly alongside independent oversight bodies. They exist to thoroughly and aggressively investigate any complaints, ensuring that nobody, and I mean nobody, is above the law they are sworn to protect. The ultimate takeaway here is the profound level of transparency this system requires. An officer must always be able to answer the question, under which law and standard operating procedure am I acting right now? If they can't answer that, they just shouldn't be acting. Furthermore, citizens are provided with simple, highly accessible channels, think online portals, direct phone lines, or local island offices, to report misconduct. The system then actually publishes anonymized statistics on these complaints and the resulting disciplinary actions to build absolute, verifiable trust with the public. Let's jump into Section 5, Communication and Public Safety. Imagine a police officer approaching you and actually saying, "We are enforcing your laws passed by your representatives, and you have rights and you can question our actions respectfully." This specific language is incredibly powerful. It constantly reminds the public that the authority of the police comes directly from the people. It empowers the citizen and reinforces the shared social contract. The police are simply the mechanism the community has chosen to keep itself safe. Because of this, the entire overarching mission shifts to a safety-first, service-oriented model. Rapid emergency response is vital, yes, but proactive guidance, like traffic safety and crime prevention tips, is just as crucial. In practice, this means using the absolute minimum necessary force and always prioritizing de-escalation. Maintaining calm voices and showing genuine patience is absolutely critical here. On an island, relationships aren't just passing encounters. They are generational. The person you interact with today is someone you will see at the market tomorrow and, realistically, for decades to come. And finally, Section 6, Tailoring for Island Nations. By leaning into a unified faith and shared language, the police can leverage incredible unity. Shared values like justice, honesty, and compassion become the actual, literal, moral foundation of the policing strategy. By communicating through the exact same cultural references, officers can make complex laws incredibly relatable and easily understandable for every single citizen. It totally bridges the gap between the bustling capital city and the most remote, quiet atoll in the nation. But how do you actually overcome the practical, everyday hurdles of island geography? Well, when you have remote distances between islands, you solve it with technology like radio, body cams, and digital case systems, so officers are always connected. What about unequal access to centralized training? You bridge that gap with robust remote training capabilities. And that massive challenge of decentralized populations? That's managed by developing specific, island-level safety plans alongside local community councils and volunteers. It really is a perfect, seamless blend of high-tech and high-touch solutions. So, to bring this all together, here are the 4 ultimate takeaways for successfully policing a unified island nation. 1. Make police education and ethics a rigorous, non-negotiable national priority. 2. Ensure officers operate strictly as servants of citizen-made laws, not as rulers. 3. Build community-centered policing that guides citizens toward safety rather than just defaulting to punishment. And 4. Enforce laws firmly but respectfully, always intentionally protecting the social fabric that holds the entire nation together. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. Even if you don't live on a remote island, the principles of treating social cohesion as a strategic asset are completely universal. Imagine applying this to your own neighborhood. How could protecting social cohesion, rather than just punishing infractions, reshape policing and public safety in your own community? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning how we can build better systems together.